This is the Mighty Books Podcast. This week's featured author is Jody Feldman. Award-winning author Jody Feldman had early thoughts of working as a treasure hunter, a codebreaker, a movie director, and an inventor. Through a series of happenstances, however, she enrolled in the Mizu School of Journalism and discovered she really could write. Her middle grade novels, The Seventh Level and the Gollywhopper Games series, have appeared on 26 state reading lists and have won, among other honors, the Georgia Children's Book Award and the Grand Canyon Readers Award. Her debut young adult novel, No Way Home, is her first thriller. You can find Jody in St. Louis, Missouri, where she discovered she can explore all her passions through the characters in her books. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, we have Jody Feldman. Jody, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so glad you are here. Very, very pleased. So today we're talking about one of your books. What is the title of the book we are chatting about today?
It's called No Way Home. It's a young adult thriller, and it's my first thriller and my first young adult. So it was very cool to be able to do that.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about the book, just to entice us, not enough to give it away, but enough to, get people to read it?
Okay. So imagine that you have an opportunity of a lifetime to travel to Rome as an exchange student. And you get there and you're with your host parents, and your counterpart is back at your hometown with your parents, and you're having the time of your life until that one morning when your host parents wake you up, drag you downstairs, put you in front of a computer screen where your counterpart in the United States is hovering over your parents with a knife to their throats saying, "Do everything we say or they will die." You're left in Rome without your passport, without any credit cards, without any money, and with a phone that's probably being bugged, and you have to commit a series of crimes to do what it is that they want you to do.
I'm hooked.
Good. That was the idea.
Yeah, that sounds thrilling. So this is your first thriller.
Yes.
So what inspired you to get into the thriller series or type genre, if you will?
Okay, well, my genre of choice reading has always been mysteries. So I read through the litany of Agatha Christie when I was a kid, because there weren't many or any great mystery type books for my for young adult age at the time. And I love movies that are kind of thrillers that are action adventure. So it was just kind of a natural thing for me to try. The reason why I'd never done that before is because I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I was capable of it. And so I thought, this is what I love. Why don't I try it? And I love it a lot. I just finished another one that I've turned into my agent. We'll see how that goes. And I've just started a third. So I don't know. Maybe it's a new thing for me.
Wow, that's cool. Kind of, going through genres a little bit and testing the waters.
Yes, it's good. So right now for the young adults, it's all thrillers. And actually I'm writing some middle grades too still. My history was in middle grade, writing middle grades. And I'm putting some thriller elements in those too, because I just kind of really like them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And I feel like as writers, we try to experiment a little bit, because when you do something for so long, it doesn't necessarily feel stale. You just you want to just try new things. It's just like food. Like, oh, I've had this for so long. Let's add some sauce to this. Oh, that tastes good too. What else is kind of spicy? Let's try that out too. So I feel like it's just natural for us to do that.
Yeah, it seems very natural, because every book that I've written has a little bit of an element of mystery anyway. So I'm just taking it to the next level.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. So with your other books, could you quickly kind of go through your synopsis of at least the titles of your other books that you've written?
Okay, so the Gollywhopper Games series started with one book, and it ended up being three because it became so popular. But it is about once in a lifetime chance. Well, it turns out now to 3 times in a lifetime chance for one kid to enter a competition. In the first book, 25,000 kids enter, and only one's going to win a huge amount of prizes. And it's about the kid. The main character is a kid who might want to win the Gollywhopper Games more than anybody else, because his father had been accused of embezzling or attempting to embezzle $5 million from the company sponsoring company. So he had something to prove. And my first 4 books are middle grade, but they all have an element of puzzles to them. So where the main character has to solve puzzles or do stunts or some sort of event to get to the next level. But as a reader, you can either try to solve along with them, or you can just read along and the hints and see how the characters solve them. So it's not like you have to sit there and solve puzzles, but you can if you want.
I got introduced to you via a professor out in Central Washington University who, during a lit course for education for elementary school students or teachers, excuse me, and that was one of the books, was one of your books in the curriculum, the 7th level, and read that one. Had a great old time with that, and it had all sorts of cool mysteries and everything. I didn't think, as an adult, early 20s at the time, I'm not really gonna get into, reading middle grade. It was fabulous. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks. I have a lot of fun writing them. So I'm glad that shined through.
Yeah, I plan on, whenever my kids get to the point where they're reading, that kind of stuff, puzzle. My boys love puzzles. So getting to that point, I'm just waiting to shove that in their face. Like, read this, enjoy, have fun. They'll get there eventually.
They will.
Yes. So what made you want to write for middle schoolers originally?
It seems to be that when you write for in the kidlit market, whatever age, from preschool on through to young adult, I have a feeling that there's some places where you want some do-overs in life. And so maybe in middle school was not my favorite time. It's not a lot of people's favorite time. And so I was able to, just looking back, and it wasn't at the time the whole idea of this, but looking back, it was like, that would be cool to be able to succeed, to be able to have more confidence through my characters than maybe I had myself. So that's the psychological thing. Now, the reality of it was that once upon a time, I thought I was a picture book author. And I thought that because I was in advertising. And so in advertising, you write short, picture books, you write short, but it turned out I had way too many words. And I was volunteering in my schools, in the school library where my daughters went. And a kid comes in waving a book of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and wants a book just like that. And I wasn't having a lot of success with picture books. So I thought, well, maybe I'll write something that he might want to read next. And it turned into I found my voice there. And that's where I stuck for a while until I grew. I leapt into young adult, and that's been fun as well.
It's very fun to see that kind of natural progression of just little choices you make throughout your life and how it can shape you. So it's really neat how that happens. Now, to kind of parry off what I was talking about before, like I said, your book was in the curriculum for that one lit class I took, and you actually were able to speak with us via Zoom or whatever video conference was at the time. Do you still do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I still talk to that same class once or twice a year, but my passion, I love going into schools, just talking to students and connecting with readers because, well, let me go back a little bit. So it took a while for my books to get published. It took me a while to learn how to write well enough to crack that nut. And one day, after I don't even know how many rejections, I was walking by the elementary school that is down the street. And from the blacktop, I'm hearing kids' voices. And I just have this yearning just to wanting to go into schools and talk to kids about reading. And my inner voice just pretty much said that I just want to go into schools. I just want to be able to talk to these kids, however way that turns out. And I thought it was through books and ended up being through books. But at that point, I didn't care. I just wanted to do that without being a teacher full time. I had no interest in being a teacher full time. The funny thing was, I don't know if you believe in putting things out into the universe, but just a few months later, I got my agent and shortly thereafter got my book published. So I've been able to go into schools and do my thing there. I still go into schools. It's still one of my favorite things to do, just to connect with the readers.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I know there's several authors who will go in and chit chat, and that's kind of a lot of people get inspired by that, including myself. Author came and chatted with us when I was like 3rd grade. And from there, I'm like, that's really cool. I would love to try that out. And I'm still doing it to this day. So and then like people like yourself come in and chat. It's like, motivates some more. So it's really nice. We learn from each other. So it makes sense that we want to also give back to, kiddos when they're getting interested in this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like I said, it's the best thing because not only do we give to them, but then just their energy comes back to us,
Mhm.
and just serves as inspiration to write more and write differently. And look at that kid with that freckle on his finger and put that into your book. So
Yeah, inspiration comes from everywhere, and definitely kids are very good at inspiring all sorts of emotions. I'll say that right now as a parent
oh yeah.
and past public school teacher. So for No Way Home, since it was your first thriller, how long did it take you? Longer, shorter to write the first draft for this one?
The interesting thing about this is that the publisher who bought this book bought it on spec, which means they bought it from an outline and 50 pages. And then they wanted it very, very, very fast. So from the outline and from the 50 pages, they pretty much threw out about 35 of the pages and then needed it in 12 weeks. And yeah, it was kind of all consuming at that time. In that 12 weeks, I was going to have out of town company for a week, and I was going to be out of town myself for a week. So, literally had about 10 weeks to write a draft that was good enough to send to the publisher. Now, that is not my normal timeline, but that's the way it was. They had a place to fill on their list, and they wanted it done to fill their list. So
Wow.
I got very lucky that they wanted it. I feel great that it didn't take that long. I don't even remember that time. It all went by in a blur, and I have no recollection of that time. I'm barely even being out of town. I don't even remember who came in town to visit me that week.
Wow. That sounds intense. That
It
sounds
was.
intense.
And then after that, it was after I got notes. So write the book, you get editorial notes. After I got notes, I had like 3 or 4 weeks to revise the entire book. And then another set of notes, I had like 2 weeks to do it the next time. And I had another week to go through copy edit. So it was very, very fast tracked. So just to put it in perspective, I think it was accepted late April and of 2021, and it came out in August of 2022, which is light speed for a book through a traditional publisher.
Yeah, I think that's light speed through anything. That's a lot. That's very fast. That's
Yes.
very fast. And it's not a short book either. It's not like it's a little novella. It's a solid book. It's like
Yeah,
I was
it's
looking at like
about,
three
it's
300.
closing in on 80,000 words. So that's a lot of words.
It is a lot of words, all the words. And then you have to, when you think about it, you have to go back and reread it and edit things out. And now, do you do your own, when you did this, fast paced first draft, did you go through yourself, do a quick like red pen edit before you sent it off?
Well, yeah. So I probably had the first draft written of, we'll just call it the 12 weeks. I had probably had the first draft written in 8 weeks. And then I spent the next 4 going over it several times to, I've got this thing. I don't like to turn in stuff that doesn't look professional, no matter what the timeline,
Right.
no matter what the job, it needs to be professional in my regard. And I knew that it still needed editing, and they knew that it was going to still need editing for such a fast draft, but I wanted it to be as clean as possible.
Sure.
So, I mean, I spent 13, 12, 15-hour days in front of my computer and paid for it physically. That's all over now.
So did you edit anything, a lot of stuff out yourself? Did you have to rewrite stuff, or was it just a lot of little stuff like, grammar and spelling and whatnot?
Oh no, it was everything. I tend to overwrite it first. I write fat, I write big, I write way too much. I put in a lot of internal dialogue that doesn't necessarily need to be there. It's just my process, my way of thinking through my character and learning about my characters.
Yeah.
So that all needed to be edited out. There were parts where I thought it was pretty good. There was a part where I thought it's not quite thrillery enough in this part. What can I do? But I just left that alone because I knew that the editor would come back and say, we need something more here. We need something more here. So there was a lot of back and forth during this time with that, because of the fast track nature of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but a lot of it's line editing, and I'm very careful with that. Things need to read really well with me, and I've got this mantra that good enough is not good enough. So if I'm going through a book and the sentence just doesn't strike me right, but it's good enough. No, I have to change it. So I've made a promise to myself to do that.
Yeah, keeping to those high standards is important. People come to expect that, from a published author. They want to make sure, hey, this reads nice. Like, oh, that's kind of sloppy. We don't want that. You don't want anyone thinking that while they're reading through a story, especially a thriller, which is supposed to be so fast paced. They don't want to be tripped up by something silly like grammar or a wrong word or something kind of funky.
That's absolutely true. I just finished a really wonderful book, a very thick book, and a book for adults, a book that's was on the New York Times bestseller, probably #1, and made into a movie. And I found myself trying to rewrite passages because it wasn't quite to my standards, which is terrible. That's just, I'm very particular and very precise. And I just, like I said, good enough is not good enough for me.
Yeah, well, that works. Now, is your editor that you work with, they pretty good at reciprocating, conversations and kind of working together with, hey, I'm struggling with this scene. Can you help me out with this? Or that's what the editor notes were helpful with.
The editorial notes were very helpful with that. And what I would do is I would just, I can figure it out myself. What I do with editorial notes is, my first editor was wonderful. She's told me, she said, these are notes are suggestions. This is your book with your name on there. Yep. You need to be the final, you're representing yourself with your name there. So if you don't like something, you don't have to do it. My reasoning is, and it still is, that they see a lot more books than I do in raw form. And if they think that there's a problem, I might not like their suggestion, but I need to find out the base of their suggestion and fix whatever it is to satisfy their comment. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I did with this. And I understood what they were going for. And I got my own ideas, and they were mostly pretty good. They were accepted right away, with just, of course, tweaks, because it's like, okay, this little scene works great, but do you think that it's too much like that other scene? Can you just change it a little bit up?
Right.
So there were things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So on a normal project where you don't have a fast-paced one, yeah. How long would it normally take you to, finish without doing 15-hour days?
Yeah. So I don't start a book until I have so many ideas and so many notes that they're kind of exploding out of my brain and through my ears and out of my mouth and nose and the whole bit. That sounds ugly, but it's the case. And until I hear my main character's voice and have an opening line and an opening scene, I don't put anything on paper. And that process can take, 2 weeks to 2 months to 2 years. So that just takes how long it takes. But once I first put that first sentence to paper and I open up a file with my, with the title and my, by Jody Feldman, that takes about 2 months to write a messy first draft.
Okay.
So I still write very fast, but then I have the leisure of taking a breath, setting it aside, because seeing something with fresh eyes to me is very important in the writing process.
I agree.
Because there will be parts where if I don't look at something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, it's like, I don't understand what it is I've even written here.
Right.
When it made perfect sense at the time. So 2 months or so to write that first draft, take a month or two off. And then it takes me 2 to 4 months to get it into shape that I think it is good enough shape to send to my agent or to see it for an editor to see.
Okay. That's very reasonable. And you're not feeling rushed. It's nice and comfortable. So you're not, pushing yourself beyond where you should be physically, I guess, and mentally comfortably. Exactly. Write it. I like exactly. That. I prefer that. So it's all coming out of your head, but do you do any research for your books?
It all depends on the book or the scene. Usually any research I try to do before I start writing, because if you've ever done any research, you can go down that rabbit hole and never, ever, ever come back out.
Right.
So I try to do just the right amount for what it is I'm trying to write. And after that, if I find that there are scenes where I'm a little hesitant about, then I will do more research. In fact, for this book I've just completed, this thriller, I went to a police department because there were some procedures I wasn't sure of. And even at their websites, I just didn't know if my particular scene flew. And I want it to be, I don't want you to, just like I don't want you to stop and question word choices or grammar choices, I don't want you to stop and question fact choices. Mm-hmm. So the facts that you see in police procedurals on TV, they skip a lot of steps, and it's not real. It's not, I talked to the policeman about this, police officer about this. Those aren't, those are kind of fake and made up, but I wanted this to be realistic. So that type of research, I'm a little more hesitant to do because I prefer just to be in my own little cave and do my own research. But yes, I do research when it's necessary. And do a lot of, like I said, a lot of pre-research just to set up scenarios. So in No Way Home, I needed to go into the history books to find some things. And I don't want to say much more because there are spoilers in
Sure.
that. But I had to do that, and just in order to set up the entire synopsis, the entire plot of the book. So, like I said, pre-writing, I do a lot more than while I'm actually drafting.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. It really as needed is what it sounds like.
Yes,
More or
absolutely.
less. More or less. So do you have like any when you are working on something or something fun comes up and you want to start writing, do you set yourself on a schedule or just kind of as you feel you just get work done? You can be up till 3 a.m. or you just, work during the day. Do you have a specific time of day you like to write or more creative, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, early in the morning, I'm usually up before the alarm goes off, and that's kind of my thinking time. And I set myself up for that. Get out of bed. I do 2 to 3 miles, and that's also thinking time. And just not motivation, but I will set maybe a scene in my head and try to think of what the sticking point is. And by the time I'm usually by the time I'm done, I have solutions for that. So from there, I just go straight to my computer. I will write from about, by the time I get out of bed and work out and do the breakfast thing, and I'll write from about 8:30, 9 o'clock till about 1:30 or so, have lunch. And then if I'm not on deadline, that's pretty much all I can do for the day. So
Yeah.
I treat it like a job where I sit at my desk and I work that whole morning. But after lunch, I'm done. The creativity has flown the coop. I answer emails. I do all the paperwork, so to speak,
Mhm.
that one needs to do as far as treating it as a business. But I treat it as a business. I treat this as a profession, and I treat this as a job, except for
Yeah.
the getting dressed part, which nobody's had to do lately. So it's okay.
Now the last couple of years really haven't needed to
Yeah.
do that. A little more now, I
It's the
guess.
yoga pants and the sweatpants and the sweatshirts. It's all good.
That sounds good to me. That sounds good. Maybe not the yoga pants for me, but
Yeah.
sweatpants, whatever, that works. So, I mean, it sounds very similar to a lot of the authors I've talked to. They really only have a finite amount of hours they can put into a project per day. A few hours, 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, because it can be very exhausting being creative. It can be very
It can.
exhausting.
It can. And the interesting part about it is in that whatever hour period, so 4 or 5, 6 hour period that I'm working, sometimes I can write up to like, I've one time I wrote an 8,000 words in that period. So I was just like, I was on fire. And sometimes I am playing with the same paragraph over and over and over again for the entire amount of time. So
Yep.
it just, each day is different, I find. And some days when I want to get a lot done, I don't. And some days when I don't care, I get everything done.
Isn't that weird? It's you really can't nail it down. I have those same problem. Like I don't feel like doing anything today. Well, I'm gonna do my, I try to have like a daily quota. It changes, ebbs and flows depending on the week, how busy it is. It's like I'll try to just do it 100 words done today. And there are some days where I'm pulling a word out, just I can't get anything down right. All I'm writing is blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's my quota. I'm leaving. I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed. There's other days where it won't shut up and it just goes to, like you said, 8,000 words. I think there was a day where I wrote 10,000 words. And I mean, it was a long day, but it was just coming out. Notes, paragraphs, pages, chapters, just
Isn't
flowing
it
out
the
of me.
best? Where it's like you're channeling something and your fingers are just typing what's in the air, and it's great. I sometimes I swear it's the barometric pressure changes that that do it. I don't know. One day maybe somebody should chart that barometric
Ooh,
pressure versus productivity.
that I would love to see how that experiment would be played out. That'd be Oh, it's got to be something like that. And the time just flies. Like I sit down and just working on a page of something or 2 pages, something. You're just channeling. You're having a great time. You're being creative, and 3, 4 hours pass. You're like, I just started. What is going on here? Like, no, 4 hours
Yeah,
gone. Like, I gotta eat.
exactly. The eating thing. That's when I know I'm really in a groove. Is that it's like, okay, I haven't eaten yet today. I'm
Yeah,
starting to wane. Give me infuse me with some sugar and some protein, and I can go back to the computer and
yeah.
finish up.
Yeah, or I try to get to sleep, and all I'm doing is just thinking about more stuff. I got to get up and get this done out of my head, or I'm not getting to bed tonight. It's so funny. It can be either, energizing or exhausting depending on kind of, I don't know, like you said, the barometric pressure, the whether Venus is in, Venus and Mercury are hanging out together. I don't know. In whatever, in cahoots. I'm not sure how to put it. I'm not an astronomer.
Retrograde. That's a big word. I don't even know
Retrograde.
what it
Yeah,
means.
I think that's the word. That's the word I'm looking for. Awesome. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Words can be hard. Words can
Yes,
be
they
really
can.
hard.
Yeah,
Uh,
sometimes I can't think of the word finisher or the word multitude, and I have to go to the thesaurus and find it because there's just too many words floating out there, and I can't find the right one, even as easy as it might be.
yeah, the thesaurus is my friend. I look up words all the time,
Oh
and I
yeah.
find myself. I don't know if you found this before, but like you notice a word you use a little too often. You're like, this, I can't do this, and so you try to avoid it as much as possible. And
Apparently, that's my word.
is
That's
that
what
your word?
I
Apparently.
use apparently all the time. I have to cut out all the apparentlys in there.
At least you know that though. You can go, like I'm just gonna keep it in there right now because I got a good flow, and I'll go back and cut that out, replace it with something else, and that
Yep.
way you can maintain your flow and get whatever you got to get done. So because editing is a huge process. So for character names, do you like have a process for character names? Do you like just kind of pick one out of thin air? What do you do for your character names? How do you name
Oh my
people?
gosh. No, it is a full on process.
Is it?
Okay, so I'm gonna one thing. Occasionally, one just pops out of thin air, and I need to use it. Just I don't know because the universe is telling me or whatever it is that's going
Right.
on. But for the most part, especially for my main characters and the secondary ones, the second major characters, I go through an entire process. I have a baby naming book that I pull off my shelf when it's time to name, especially the main character, because I start with the main character, and the main character could start with any letter of the alphabet. I will go through the entire baby name book, looking at all the headings, and I will write down a list of between 40 and 70 names that might work. And then I just go through that list just willy-nilly, just say no, 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 no. And by that time, I usually have a list of about, maybe 10 names. I'll go back to the baby naming book, look at the etymology of the name, and see what might fit the character the best. So there is that's for the first name. There's a method to my madness. For the surname, I try to think of what type of qualities that character needs to have, or I want that character to have, or just kind of a feel for that. And I will sometimes look up. Sometimes what I do, I'll go to the Google Translate app, and I will put in the quality, and I'll see what that translates to in another language, and I can see if I can riff on that for the last names. So there are some other things that I do for my names, but I take my names very seriously. And for the most part, I have a reason behind every single name, first and last name of every character, including pets that are in my books.
Oh, that's cool. That's kind of cool. Everything has a little origin to it.
They do.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. Yeah, I did a little bit of that with mine. I looked at like the etymology of the names. What does it mean, and what like big events happen throughout the story, and like you're going to be that one. This is going to be this one, and if people look into it, they might be able to find something. But anyway, it's just funny how people will different authors go about naming their characters. Some will actually use friends and family just because they can, and others will do something a little more intimate like yourself and really dive into that name's origin. So
Yeah,
I like it.
I'll use a little bit of friends and family for minor characters, but
Okay,
I don't do them for major characters because I don't want the characters to take on the complete characteristics of the people that I know so well.
that's a good point. That's a good point, because it would definitely, your mindset would just go, well, they're usually like this, but that's not what the character is in your book. So you have to, I don't know, trick yourself into not using, not going down that road, I guess.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So, what was one of the most surprising things you have learned or come across as you've created and gone through the whole publishing process with your books?
Probably the most amazing thing to me that blew my mind was I was actually capable of writing a full-length novel with an ending with endings that I felt were satisfying, with characters I felt were pretty whole. I didn't know that I knew how to do that. Maybe some people think, oh, I learned how to foreshadow, or I learned how to do this kind of literary device and the whole thing. And And maybe though I did learn to do some of those things, and for the goodness of the books. But again, the most amazing thing was I was capable of doing it not only once, but I was capable of doing it multiple times. So that is perhaps the most surprising thing to me, because like I said before, I started out in picture books where you can like gulp them down in one bite. And I didn't know that I could extend a character that long. So that's the short answer. There are many other little things, but that's the biggest one.
Sure. Yeah. It's quite a feat, especially when you finish up and you're like, I did this. This is huge. This is so much detail. There's it. People have looked. I've asked author like, how do you come up with it? How do you do this? It's the amount of respect and like awe people have for writers who actually produce books is kind of hilarious, because it's just like we're not doing anything crazy. It's just we have a really good idea in our head. We want to flesh it out and have fun with it. It's just you take it day by day and you do as much as you can with it, and eventually you have a book.
Well, I tend to be on the introvert extrovert scale. I tend to be like a social introvert, which actually works really well for this whole profession, because I'm always in my head. And I think that you have to be in your head a lot in order to put some depth into your characters and to what they're thinking. And you also have to have a lot of empathy for different viewpoints, because if every character thinks the same way, you don't have a book.
No. Yeah, I feel with you with the introvert extrovert thing, because and I'll draw on my experiences from out and about in town. Like I can't just sit and work, that's just not how I work. I can't just sit in there all like for a month. I can't just sit here and just write. I thought I could at one point, but I found I need to go out and just kind of drink in the environment and talk to people and be social and be goofy. So that kind of introverted. I always say I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies,
Yeah.
because I love being around. I love talking to people, but it is I get my energy, because I'm an introvert. I get my energy from being alone.
Right.
But I love being able to talk and be social and learn from people. It just tires me out over a period of time. That's just how it goes. But if I
Yeah.
don't have that external stimulus, forget writing anything. It's just not going to happen at all. I have to have that. So,
Well, I mean, I'm going to just speak to that just real quickly. Just, I'm often asked, do you have any tips for writers?
mhm.
Especially kids will ask that. And one of the things that I tell them, and I have, this has been a more recent one. Of course, it was always read everything, write, read, write,
Right.
and that whole book, and put things away and see things with fresh eyes. But my new number one piece of advice is to put down your phones, put down your devices, and actually live. Look outside, see what trees look like in real life. Watch how they just stare outside, watch how the leaf kind of finally falls off the tree and floats down. Look how people are interacting, because I think that a lot of our ideas, you don't want other people's ideas. And what you do is you get other people's ideas when your faces are in your device. When your face is in your device, you're watching other people's ideas. And what you need to be a writer is to have fresh ideas, and you can only get those through your own mind.
It's so funny that you said that, because I literally just had a blog that I wrote about this exact thing. One of my tips to getting your draft done was to put down the phone.
Yeah.
Literally was one of my tips, and it was just leave it in the other room, put it in a lockbox, lose it, whatever, give it to your kid, have them lose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll do that really quickly. But yeah, that is a huge one. A, for focus, and B, just for living. Go out and explore. Go get dirty. Go look at stuff. I mean, that's really how it is. Books are a reflection of your life, in my opinion. Whatever you've experienced, you put into your books, whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever. I feel that 100%. That's
Yeah. And just to that, people have asked, or do you collect anything? And I said, I have chosen to collect experiences, because it's all in the same vein about just living life and learning what's out there. And it's bigger than who you are and what your little environment is.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. We just got to get out and enjoy ourselves. We only live on this planet for a finite amount of time, a very small blip, in existence. Get out and enjoy it. Don't hang out with your phone all the time or other computer, whatever technology. Go experience, go
Yes.
laugh, go cry, go do whatever you got to do. And then when the inkling comes about, write about it.
There you
I want to
go.
read it too. So that's actually a great segue. So for the tips and everything, but when everything's said and done, where can we all get a wonderful copy of No Way Home or all your other books that you've written?
You can get them. Any bookseller can get them for you right away. I've got a real soft spot for independent bookstores, indiebound.com, but you can always go to Amazon. You can go to Barnes and Noble, and any place, if they don't have it in stock, can get it in my books and for you within like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, cool.
And just to let you know that my other plug for the indie bookstores is, for No Way Home, at least, Amazon has not been discounting it at all. So it's the same exact price everywhere. And so, and because it was issued in a first edition, I forget what it's called, but it's a soft cover first edition. It's not quite paperback size, that it's only $10.99. So skip a coffee, skip a coffee and a half, and there you go. You can buy a book. Buy books, please buy books.
Yes, please.
Everybody's books.
Yes, all the books. Keep them all, read them all. Yes, I highly recommend hers. Like I said, I've only read one so far, the 7th level, and it was excellent. I read it when I was, in my early 20s, and I loved it dearly. I thought it was very, very fun. Actually, the one thing I always remember about that one is your use of the word oaf.
So actually, I think it was Kirkus, which, I mean, you can get, people say I got Kirkus. Kirkus is a review journal, which can be very, very, very picky. But the person in there said, I didn't like the book because she used the word oaf, and that kids just don't use that word. And so my next set of school visits, I said, who's ever heard of the word oaf? It's like all the hands went up. Like, would you ever use the word oaf? Yeah, I use it all the time. So anyway, so thank you for validating me again.
You're welcome. Yeah, I thought that was something like, oh, I don't hear that word enough. And it was great. It was, I don't know, it's kids trying to learn vocabulary, and they're using bigger words. Like when my boys use words that I don't expect to come out of a 6 or an 8-year-old, I'm like, oh, good word. I encourage that. Use all those. It's just good stuff. It's just good stuff. Well, you guys heard it. Go online, go to indie stores, grab her books. They're delightful. Good gifts for the holidays, good gifts for birthdays, good gifts for a Tuesday, whatever you need to do. Go ahead and snag her books. But Jody, this has been really great. I really appreciate you taking that time out of your schedule to chat with me. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Ryan. It's been fun. I love talking books. I love talking writing.
I do too. And when, because you've already written a couple more coming out on the pipeline here, when those come out, you want to do another interview, I'll be happy to oblige. I think it'd be fun to touch base again.
Sounds great. Sounds perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Well, everybody, I hope you have an excellent day. Hope you enjoyed this. And we will see you on the next one. Take care. Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.